Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of The Chamber Within. Today, I want to speak on the idea of spiritual sovereignty and what that means. So, spiritual or personal sovereignty speaks to the idea of being responsible for your life, being authentic, the captain of your proverbial ship, and my personal favorite, really acknowledging your personal power. You're no longer looking for permissions in your life. You trust your gut and go with your inner guidance system to play this game of life. So you're no longer relying on an outer system for reward or validation from someone else, which is truly empowering. I, for real. At first, this idea may seem a bit scary because when we are truly in our power, we cannot place blame on others, which is a really easy scapegoat. It removes the option to have a victim mentality. I say personal power is my favorite aspect of sovereignty because I have felt deeply disempowered in the past, as I said before. I have felt relying on others' feedback and have denied my own intuition about certain situations. Now, how we see ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, as well as the lives we are living, is so important. But also, the responsibility is very great. So, I'll start this episode off by listing what we lose, and then I'll list what we gain. So, with the art of personal sovereignty, we lose victimhood, what I like to call the woe is me syndrome, the need for approval from others, because we no longer need it to make decisions, right? Disempowering beliefs like, I'm not good enough to achieve my dreams, none of my goals. We lose uncertainty of our own path and we're reactive, which is huge. Reacting to what someone says, a particular event, just many distractions that pull us emotionally in different places. We're scattered with our nervous system up and down, sad, angry, like it's just not being in control. What we gain is focus on our internal state, inner guidance. We gain our own broadcasting of our frequency where we are radiating our signature level of peace, right? Whatever that is for you. I know what mine is, um, but you're emitting a frequency. When you enter a room, you are felt. You aren't receiving constant bombardments of someone's angry or someone's upset about they're jealous and well, why do they feel that way? It doesn't matter. They have to figure that out. You walk in, you bring peace to the room because you are your own stillness. Trust. You gain trust on your own path. This seems like a small, insignificant gain, but when you trust wherever you are, you no longer need to judge where you stand. I like to look at it this way. You go from being an employee to the CEO of your own life. You're making decisions. You know what's best for you, your body, which is your company, right? In this particular instance, to make this metaphor work. You know what's best for you. Those of us who have been in our bodies for a number of decades really get this because it gets easier over time. I say that because we've tested the waters, we've been in many situations we don't prefer. We know the differences, the stark differences between what we like and don't like, and what we will tolerate and choose to no longer tolerate. You're not receiving directions on where to take this body, take this company, right? You are the CEO. You get to set the criteria for what works for your company. You have your own particular mission statement, and then you go from there. So, for example, when I was married, I had a great job with great benefits that my immediate family could benefit from. I worked with a major airline and we could fly domestically for free and internationally for just the cost of the international taxes. Big fun and looked good on paper, but I always knew it was not for me. It was entirely stressful, and although I helped people, I felt as though I was not helping in a way that made the impact that I wanted it to, not in a way that I felt good about. I can help you get on your flight, I can help you change your itinerary, so on and so forth. Um, but as you know, if you have ever worked with the general public, I was occasionally, almost daily, yelled at or cursed out by irate passengers because life just wasn't going their way. And I was their sounding board, emotional punching bag some days. I worked with people who would cry before their shift, took antidepressants, and would even go so far as to drink while on the job. I didn't care about the outside view looking in, how great this looked on paper. I cared about how I felt before, during, and after my shift. Yes, I was able to pay bills, but it was also soul crushing, bit by bit, every single day. So, as far as the gains and losses go, for me, the contrast of victimhood to empowerment and approval from others versus inner guidance felt like a nice change in pace, a huge load lifted off of me. It was nice. There's a better word than nice, but man, oh man, it felt like I was no longer living a lie. I'm not having to explain decisions or defend any choices I make. I've broken through a wall to an entirely new, different place, state of being where I love something simply because I genuinely feel good about it, not because of the status or what it may bring to others or what it may look like. I know things are going to work out for me because I trust that I'm taken care of. That's also a shift from constant worry to trusting where I stand. When I began this journey of sovereignty, it felt like some really big shoes to fill. It felt like a really nice thing. Well, it must be nice to feel that way. I was thinking, that's sweet. I had to grow into this sense of self, but I'm finally able to walk the talk, be the CEO. Today, I have an entirely new and very real enthusiasm over my personal narration. That's a huge responsibility, but it's worth it. To me, it's worth it. It's basically a control over my own frequency, also known as my inner state. And like I said, it's a relief to be able to remain steady regardless of what's happening on the outside. It's a class for sure in emotional and mental mastery. It's not emotional IQ 101 and mental stability 101. I feel like this is 301, maybe 401, and I'm about to graduate. That would be nice. But anyway, there are little pop quizzes here and there. And as I've said before, growth is the ability to look at a situation differently than you would have in the past. So here's a few things to remember. If things aren't going your way right now, just you wait, because that will change. Life is change. If nothing else, it is change. Observe situations, but don't absorb situations. Focus on your future and not your past. Also, pay attention to your nervous system because it will communicate to you without fail. Also, pivot when you feel it's right for you and continue to trust yourself on this journey. That's what spiritual sovereignty comes down to. Not control, not perfection, but trust. Trusting yourself enough to listen, trusting yourself enough to choose, and trusting yourself enough to stand in what feels true for you, even when it's not easy. Because at the end of the day, no one can walk your path for you. Only you can do that. And maybe that's not something to be fearful of. Perhaps it's the freedom you've been looking for. If this conversation around spiritual sovereignty has brought up anything for you, I invite you to share it. You can leave me a voice message at speakpipe.com/ the Chamber Voice Line, because your voice might help someone else too. Or, if you'd like, you can email me at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com. Thank you for joining me this week and have a wonderful week ahead. Talk to you later. Bye bye.